Welcome back to the Smarter Marketer podcast, brought to you by Rocket Agency. I'm your host, James Lawrence. Welcome back to the Smarter Marketer podcast. I'm here today with David Lawrence, baby bro, big bro. Could be one, could be the other.
I'll take big bro today, I think.
So I'm not going to give you an introduction, Dave. You've been on the pod a few times before. Well, the conversation today is around the signs that your marketing agency is the wrong or right fit, or the wrong or right partner for you, which I think is an interesting topic. And this is definitely us kind of taking our rocket hats off and objectively just looking at it, and what are the signs that you have the right agency partner? What are the signs you might have the right agency partner and you just need to recalibrate things versus, no, this is just not the right partner to solve the problem that I need solved. I think in discussing the conversation today, Dave, you wanted to, I guess, frame the conversation in terms of where this all fits.
Yeah, definitely. I think big picture on this, that right for you, that for you part is really, really important. So there's so many agencies, digital agencies, creative agencies, there's ad agencies, there's agencies galore, right? And
that's just in Surrey Hills, Sydney.
And it's probably just in Devonshire Street, Surrey Hills, Sydney. They're everywhere. But I think there's not one single agency in the world that is right for everyone. It's just not a thing. Now, sadly, there's probably some agencies that are right for no one. But I don't think that's often the case. I think often when someone has a bad experience with an agency, it's often because the fit's not right. And so before we get into some really important points about how you know if things are going right or going wrong, I think it's really important that people understand there's decisions that get made or decisions that should be made before an agency is appointed, because those decisions will completely determine whether it's going to be successful. So if you're a smaller business and you've got tight-ish budget, going to an agency where you're going to be their smallest client, paying money that you can't really afford, it's probably going to be pretty underwhelming for you because you're not going to be that important to them. It's going to be really important to your P&L. Probably going to hurt. And likewise, conversely, going to an agency which is tiny when your budget and your needs are massive, it can flood them, and it could actually just be something that they're not ready to do yet. But I think just as important to that is understanding clearly what your marketing strategy is and what part of the strategy this particular agency is going to fill. And we've definitely seen over the years, we say no to tons and tons of work. And often the reason we're saying no to it is because we genuinely don't think we're going to be able to help that client be successful. And that doesn't mean that client can't be successful. It doesn't mean some agency can't make them successful. But for our skills, the way we approach things and what we know about their preparedness for what we do, we just don't think it's going to work. And not every agency will operate on that basis, and not every agency will make the right decision as well. So just be really careful that you know what success looks like, and you understand what that agency is capable of, and you've communicated what success has to look like, and you've had a really mature conversation before you start, because sometimes it was just never going to work out, and the best decision would have been to not work together in the first place.
Yeah, it's very true. It's kind of a lot of square peg, round hole stuff, right? If you go to a SEO agency, the solution they're going to put forward is an SEO one. If you go to a creative agency, it'll be a creative solution. So you just got to make sure that you're, first of all, engaging the right type of agency, right? And then within that, couldn't agree with you more. We often get asked that by prospective clients, like, why are you the best agency, or why you, kind of thing. And it's often quite disarming when I say, well, it's not about the best agency. It's about the best agency for you. And Rocket may or may not be that. Let's find out that. Let's establish it. But yep, I think that's bang on. So let's presume though that listeners to the pod, they've got an agency. By and large, that agency is trying to solve a problem that this client needs solved. And it's a legitimate agency. It's not like we're dealing with someone that's, just manifestly not willing to deliver on contractually what they deliver or anything like that. So with all that considered, we've put together, I guess, the kind of key themes that we think are important in this area. And I'll go first, Dave. So the first one is results, and also a response, how you respond if you're not getting the results you need.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really good that you've mentioned how they respond to not getting the results you need. it would be dishonest for any agency to tell you that everything works great all the time. Um, Marketing's part science, part art, and they won't get it right every time. And you want to know how they're going to deal with challenges and failures. But absolutely, if people appoint an agency because they want an outcome, and hopefully they're really clear on what that outcome is and they understand how they're going to measure it in terms of success. But yeah, if they can't generate results, then perhaps they're not the right agency, or perhaps it just wasn't the right decision. Perhaps this is not an area that your business is going to find success in. But yeah, if the agency has a great plan for version 2 or version 3 or version 4 of that campaign, and they've got another idea of how they want to roll it out, then you want to listen to people who know what they're talking about, mature perspectives, and give them a shot if it's going to be worthwhile for you.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I think if we got it right 65% of the time, we'd be complete geniuses when it comes to marketing. Like the reality is, and we're fortunate that the audience and the pod are marketers, right? So that certain campaigns work, certain campaigns don't work. That's why you should have a test budget, test and learn, all those things that we should all be doing. But I think for me, it's the way that an agency responds when things do turn. Is it kind of a resistance to change strategy? Is it just throw the hands in the air? Is it blaming things external, which, quarter after quarter, month after month, start to feel a little bit not quite right? I think so. It's that subtle balance between, it's just seasonality, or, it's a tough economy at the moment, or whatever it might be, or that campaign performed in a different way than what we thought. But to me, you're engaging an agency, particularly, if it's a digital marketing agency like the space we're in, it probably is more metric driven. Results are probably easier in some ways to kind of, we're all attached to monthly dashboards and all those types of things, but you want to see results moving in the right direction. And if they're not quite there, then hopefully you've got realistic expectations around that, but you'd want to see some, a reasonable response to that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, isn't it? I think when you ask a marketer what they want from their agency, the number one thing they think about is results. It's not the thing they spend the most time talking about when they start talking about ways agencies have blown them away or way agencies have let them down. It's probably the other points that in a funny way actually make more difference. I think you just have to assume the results are happening. It's important. It's got to be there. You need flexibility. But let's get on to maybe the next point, which is you know, how mature are the people that are putting together your strategy at the agency, and how focused are they on solving your particular business problem with the skills that they offer?
Yeah, I think for a lot of feedback that we get is, and once again, conscious that this is kind of coming more from a digital marketing viewpoint. There's much broader subset of agencies out there, but the you want a team and you want an agency partner that is proficient in platform, is proficient in the tools, but I think never loses sight of the business outcome that they're trying to focus and work towards. I think you want an agency partner that's commercially minded. The team, whether that's your account manager, whether that's a principal at the agency, whether that's a technician working on one of your accounts, I think you need to make sure there's an alignment, which is, yep, we're in platform and it's CPCs and ROAS or whatever those things might be. But everyone should be singing from the same song sheet when it comes to understanding that, no, for this particular client, we're trying to generate these types of leads and this is the type of persona we're dealing with. And it's a long path to purchase, or no, actually not. It's these SKUs over here and these are strategically important. But I think to me, that's a big one. I think if you're dealing with just a practitioner who's technically strong but weak in the commercial kind of state of mind, then you're going to kind of struggle eventually to get the results you need.
Yeah, that's it. And we see it not infrequently, where we'll be there'll be a specialist who will be celebrating enormous success on a campaign, high number of leads or lowest cost per click or cost per acquisition, whatever it is. And then we'll speak to the client and discover they're actually really unhappy because the Google ads or the GA4 metrics look fantastic, but the lead quality is not there. It's just not converting into sales. And conversely, we've got other times where specialists are actually quite worried a campaign's not working um, until we speak with the client and we find out, yeah, it's a really high value product or service they're
Mm.
offering. They don't want to make many sales and the sales cycle is very long, but hey, they've just landed their two biggest deals of the year from the work we've done.
Yeah.
They don't care what's happening in GA4. So just that maturity to understand what success it is and what the metrics are you should be looking at and when you should be having good chats to the client about what's working and what's not working.
100%. Next point is what doesn't apply to us because we've never had any staff member
No,
leave the agency. So
never,
it's
never.
staff turnover. I think this is one that you have an opinion on, and I think it's
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I really do. This is a really interesting one. We hear this a lot from clients that are coming to work with Rocket, which is the reason they're unhappy with their previous agency is because they kept on seeing staff churn, account managers leaving. And I have sort of two thoughts on this. One is show me the company with staff that doesn't have turnover. Uh, it's a thing. It happens. People lose staff. Agencies are exactly the same. Many agencies probably do have higher churn than the average out there. Thankfully, we're not one of those agencies, but of course, we still lose staff, and often it's for great reasons. You know, they're enormously skilled, and they may not see the opportunities internally, or they might want to change, or they might want a career change or a holiday. All these great things. So staff turnover is not necessarily a bad thing. What is a bad thing is when an agency doesn't have systems in place to preserve the IP and the knowledge of the campaign. So that's what would worry me. It's obvious if you had a new AM every couple of months, that would be very disturbing. But largely, yeah, someone's leaving. That's okay. That's an opportunity to work with someone else. Do they know all the things they need to know to take your campaign to the next level? Or are you
Yeah,
going to be starting from scratch?
that's right. And like the transition also of team member, I think obviously the transition of knowledge is important, but what does it look like? Have you been exposed to more than one person within a team so that there's still some IP that stays there? Is there a process to make sure that the new contact is someone that's already been in the agency, or if they're fresh, that there's oversight from an experienced member of the team? And without wishing to turn like a negative into a positive, I actually think that turnover an account can be for the best, right? I think it doesn't matter even if you've had some of the greatest team members at Rocket.
Mm.
If they move on, often fresh ideas, fresh perspective, kind of looking at things with a new lens can be really effective. Not to suggest that is the case every time, but I think, yeah, coming into it knowing or expecting that you are going to have turnover at an agency, it is the nature of the game to some extent.
Yep.
There's within LinkedIn, you can look at kind of churn of staff within a year and get kind of average tenure within agencies. And we're pretty comfortable with how our team stacks up there. But yeah, I think staff turnover is a misnomer. It's about the effect of staff turnover on your campaigns. And I think you have a right to not be regurgitating what you do as a business and explaining work that the agency itself did for you 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 9 months ago.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's all about how it's handled for sure.
Love it.
For sure. Next one that I think is worth talking about is who you have access to in the agency. So, of course, you know, you're probably going to have a team of people that you're working with, depending on what the task is, and they're going to be a mix of probably juniors and mids and some seniors. But as the client, do you feel you have access to senior people that have seen it all before and can make really sound strategic decisions? It doesn't mean they're doing everything on your account, but can you get to them and are they adding value?
Yeah, I think it's a big one. I think that comes massively back to the right agency for you and the right fit. In our book that we put together, there is a section on the right people for the job. And one of the, I guess, kind of litmus tests, for want of a better expression, of is this going to be the right agency for you? Is kind of how seriously you're taken in that kind of onboarding and pre-sale phase. And if you're not kind of getting access to senior people in the team, if you're not getting access to the MD, senior directors, co-founders, et cetera, then like, what's going to happen when you're actually on board and you've got an issue? And
Yep.
for me, it's about having the appropriate use of resourcing at all times. And I think most agencies are structured where the most experienced people, the people with the deep subject matter expertise, strategic nous, they're not going to be on your account full time. They're going to be leveraged across a handful of accounts. But you do want to have access and you want to be able to reach out to them direct. It might be still, with an account management function, depending on how that agency is structured. But if it's you kind of being landed by, two people in shiny clothes with big promises, and then you never get to see those people again, then you're probably not going to be getting the strategic direction on your account that you otherwise would want, right?
Yeah, that's it. And likewise, there's a flip side to that, isn't there? Which is if you've got really senior people on your account all the time and they're doing really low value tasks, then one of two things is happening. Either you're being charged a ton of money for tasks that could be done by by less expensive people, or the agencies probably working themselves to death or underperforming from a financial perspective because they're just chewing up all their senior time on low value tasks. So yeah, I think you would expect a healthy balance of different levels of seniority on your account, in addition to access to those senior people when you need it.
Yeah, and I think you'll feel that. You'll know that by when you're speaking to your day to day, whether, yeah, I ran that by, staff member X or staff member Y, and I were talking about it and we thought this, and you'll start to feel that the kind of, the more experienced people in the business are still thinking about your account and trying to still solve your problem strategically.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Um, Next one is, I think, a big bugbear for listeners onto the pod, but respect your time.
Yeah. I love this one. Um, that there's the brutal transparency. There in parts of the agency world, there remains a, a misunderstanding of the role of marketers on the client side. And the misunderstanding is that, hey, those guys only work on one client. How busy can they really be? Here am I in an agency with 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 clients. I'm super busy. My time's really valuable. And that can lead to disrespecting the time of an in-house marketer. And the reality is in-house marketers are busy. They might only have one client, but that client has them 100% of the time. And they're dealing with all manner of stakeholders and approval processes and legal frameworks and business challenges, a whole bunch of stuff that never gets anywhere near the agency. The reason they're working with an agency is because they don't have time to do this stuff themselves quite often. So they haven't outsourced it to still be involved in every single thing, and they haven't outsourced it to be sent work that's not of a sufficient quality. So if an agency is wasting a client's time, poor work, meetings that don't have to happen, um, meetings that are too long or don't add value, then yeah, there should be some question marks, or at least a realignment of what the client values and how the agency can fit into that.
Yeah, that's it. I have very little to add because I couldn't agree with you more in the way you kind of answered that. Just to add to it, probably a more general point, which is if if you have a relationship with an agency partner and certain things like this are popping up, you need to be giving feedback about that. And I
Yeah.
think that's because we had Darren Woolley on the pod recently, who kind of is involved in lots of helping clients with through agency tenders and pitches, and he's kind of doctor and he's so well regarded in that space. And he, despite his job, he's so often is this client should not be changing agencies. It's just a recalibration rather than a because there is a massive upheaval in going out to market and then having to onboard, et cetera. So I think that something like that, you might and potentially, if you've got a partner who might be lacking that kind of maturity slash business focus, you might think that they think they're doing their job by dragging you into stuff and sending you spreadsheets that are, thousands of rows long and sending you the 140-page PowerPoint presentation. Like that probably is an area where you can recalibrate things. And if you can't, then you probably don't have the right partner, right?
Yeah, that's it. And let's face it, there are some clients that love that level of detail. Not all of them for sure, and typically not the more senior people. But yeah, you're right. If the client's getting um, having to invest too much time or not enough time into the relationship, then yeah, recalibration is exactly the solution for that, for sure. Um, I think another important role that an agency can play, and so it can determine whether it's a good fit or a bad fit, is how well they work to educate you on what it is that they do.
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm kind of passionate about that one. It's often probably kind of a bigger consideration than you might think. So often, particularly when you're dealing with senior marketers looking to onboard a new agency, it'll often be kind of one of those things that'll casually be communicated to you, which is, I've got two pretty junior marketers here. They're great, great attitude, but I want them to be able to do a lot of this stuff in the future. Or it's going to be great for them to know this stuff. And you should be being educated on the subject matter, on the area that your agency is working within. And for me, it then crosses really quickly into transparency and openness. And particularly in the space that we play, particularly in SEO, there's been so many smoke and mirrors, so much dark arts, so many kind of big players that have kind of given the industry itself a pretty dodgy reputation for a lot of the practices and ways that those businesses have been run. And there shouldn't be anything smoke and mirrors about what we're doing. You should be educating clients. There's probably a level of minutia which most clients don't want to go into, but over time, like the team that you're working with should be imparting information. And I think for me, crucially, I was in a meeting this morning with an important client of ours, and I was actually so impressed with one of our subject matter experts. First of all, for just saying I don't know on something. You actually don't know the answer to that. It was a great question. And then there was a question around budget and if more budget could we put into his particular channel. And he actually said, no, I think I've actually got too much for what I can get out of this channel. And to me, and then kind of went on to explain the why of that. And that, I think that's the kind of relationship you want to have where you are being educated. And I don't think it has to extend to things like, Rocket has a podcast. Yes, we send it out to our clients, but I think it should be just in the day-to-day relationship, sending, when you are reporting back on what you've done and explaining deliverables, you really should be bringing the client along on the journey.
Yeah, totally. And it helps the client so much because often, you're a marketer working inside an organization that may not be very marketing friendly. And if your agency tells you things are great and just tell you that and give you a bunch of reports, it can be really hard to then communicate that up the line and convince people that a great job is being done and that budget should continue to be invested in it. So a smart agency can actually be quite self-serving and understand that educating their clients is a really great way to make sure that good decisions are supported right through the organization.
Totally.
It's the right thing to do. It can really help the careers of our clients prosper as well.
I think the career growth is massive. I think anecdotally hearing from clients, nothing to do with working with Rocket, but having worked with previous agencies in a whole bunch of different subject matter areas, how much they learn as a junior marketer or in their previous role, but then allows them to, when they are talking to MD or CMO or head of sales, they can actually explain and articulate, the role of creative or the role of insights, whatever it might be. So I think you're missing out as a marketer if your agency partners aren't helping you learn.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Right. I think that the next interesting one is just the overall experience. So, and this probably comes back to the whole, there's no agency that's right for everyone. Um, if you just don't like the way they work, if you don't like the people, if you don't like their values or their culture, it's probably not the right agency for you because those things are probably not going to change just because they don't suit you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think this comes so much down to the right agency, not the best agency. It's what's the right one for you. And yeah, cultural alignment. It's if you just don't like the vibe, it's not going to work. And I really don't like in business when it's like, yeah, let's have some fun working together because I think it's just so cliched and it's not really why we're here. Like I think it's okay if it's a byproduct of, and we have lots of great relationships with lots of our clients and many have become friends and we've had lunches and all those things, but not about having fun, but it's actually about being on the same page as someone, having a real cultural alignment. You're going to struggle. You're going to be pushing uphill forever if you just don't like them, and then you kind of escalate something, or maybe you want to change of contact, and you kind of get in the same feeling, or there's just a disconnect in that relationship. I think you're going to struggle to get the most out of each other in that situation. Because I think it's such a cliche, but it is a partnership, and it's not really that different to the people on your team. If you've got good people around you that you're all working together, you'll get good outcomes. But really, in business or in team sports or anything like that, are you going to do well where you've just fundamentally got people that don't see eye to eye and don't really like each other?
And that's it. And chances are, if you don't like them, you probably don't trust them. And if you don't trust them, then when things don't go right, which we talked about right at the beginning as being a very real possibility in any marketing campaign, if you're not going to trust them when things aren't going right, you're not going to believe that they've done the right thing or that they're going to be able to get it back under control. So yeah, if there's no alignment there, it's probably not going to be fixable, and it's probably not going to work.
That's it. With the exception of Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, who did a pretty good job, despite not liking each other.
That's very true. That's very true. And I was gonna say, you commenting on, it's a cliche about things being fun, but you are the fun guy. You are the fun guy for our
I'm the
client.
fun guy. We've got a problem.
Well, I'm definitely not the fun guy, so we give it to you.
But no, I think it's okay to have fun, but it just it kind of grates on me because it's not what we're here for.
Yeah.
But I think that's the reality. I think if you're with people who you do kind of just naturally have an inclination towards, it doesn't mean they have to be the same or anything like that. But I think and I think everyone listening will know what it feels like when you feel like, yep, I can work with this person. Doesn't mean you have to have a whole lot of shared interests. You may, but it's think you're going to struggle if you just, I think your point's the right one, which is if you don't like them, you probably don't trust them.
This is something that's probably changed. It's a bit of an aside, but I think it's something that's changed a lot, not just because of COVID, but it's been happening for a long time. Back in the day, I remember people would make it very clear that one of the reasons they appointed an agency was because they wanted to have fun, and they would
Mm.
actually get you to, take them out on regular things, or they'd say, "Oh, I've told the boss that my agency afternoon. What are we going to do?" kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, and that's gone now. I think there is an understanding that like and trust and values alignment is actually genuinely worth something. Pure fun. I don't think anyone has time for that anymore. Um, Sadly or not sadly.
Yeah, I
So yeah,
think it's true. And like, don't get me wrong, I think it's so valuable to break down that wall and have a proper relationship and understand. Because I think that, to your point, that builds trust. And I think when you do social events with clients and you start to learn about their kids and what their interests are and whatever else, I think when something does go wrong, there's trust, and it's very comes back to that first point around results. So it's like, no, genuinely, this was because of X or because of Y. Let's work on this, and you cut each other some slack. So I think it's you want to, and that probably lends itself nicely to the point, which is you just want to have that alignment and feeling of actually liking working together.
absolutely.
This one to me is a huge one: proactivity.
Yeah, this comes up all the time, doesn't it? When we're speaking to clients or prospects, or we're trying to understand why someone's existing agency is not the agency they want to work with anymore. Proactivity. If you're getting results, but just looking backwards and doing the basics, it just doesn't seem to be a relationship that people love. If people love it when their specialists and their account managers and the strategists are reaching out and saying, "Hey, I had a thought about your campaign the other day. Have you ever considered doing ABC?" Or read a really interesting article last week. Was thinking about you. Here it is. Let's have a chat next time we catch up. It can be little things. It can be really big things, but proactivity shows that you care. And I think it's a really important part of a client agency relationship that's working.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it shows you care, and I think it also shows that you know your stuff and you're confident. Um, but yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's why agencies are engaged. Like if if you can do it yourself in house, then it's probably going to be cheaper to do it. And obviously, if it's half a full time employee, then an agency can help kind of smooth that out. But I think the big reason you're paying an agency is because they have vision and perspective into areas where you just can't go. An agency will be working with 10 clients or 20 clients, or they'll run 30 campaigns in a particular way. And you want those learnings from those other experiences to be deployed onto your work. And so I think if an agency partner isn't being proactive in terms of, hey, things have changed, we're now GA4 is now where we should be, or we've been playing with this particular bit of technology for the last 6 months with other clients and we're getting great results. Let's roll it out for yourself. Then I think that set and forget would suggest you probably don't have the right partner.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. A good agency simply has to know things above and beyond um, what's happening inside the client or even within any one campaign. And if they're not sharing it, why not?
Yeah, because you'd do it yourself if you could. That's
Yep.
the reality of like that's that you pay the agency to bring those insights and you otherwise just don't have.
Yeah, that's it. You can't read the label from inside the bottle.
We love that one.
We do. We do. And I think our last point we have on this little list here is how well is the agency integrating things with other channels and partners.
Yeah. And it kind of links up probably quite nicely to maturity and understanding the business outcomes, right? But a good agency partner should be working really well with your other agencies in the agency village. And they also should be working in a way that takes into account the other marketing activities you're running.
Mm.
You're running outdoor advertising, you're running TV, PR agency. It's kind of interesting in our space. Like for a lot of our clients, we're doing their organic search, we're doing their paid search, we're doing their paid social, but for some, we're just running their search, both organic and paid. They'll have media agencies running that type of stuff. For others, they'll view paid media as one bucket, which is, paid search and paid media. They'll have an external other agency. we have a creative agency within our agency, and yet lots of our clients have other creative firms they're using. And so it's really important, like to get the best results for our clients, we need to be working in alignment with those partners. And it's probably getting a little bit granular, but it's the classic SEO and paid search stuff, right? Like if we're just running paid search, then we'll just bid on brand and get conversions, but that might cannibalize organic activity. And if we're running organic activity, we'll, performance agency tell the client to turn off branded search, and neither's necessarily acting in the best interest of the client. You want to be kind of working collaboratively to drive the best outcome possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so true. And yeah, I've always thought it's a bit strange when, whether it's an agency or an individual, sees the other people working on the wider team as an enemy, or something to be sort of managed in a negative kind of way. Like, oh, geez, I've got to work with the creative agency. Like, no, that's a fantastic opportunity to look at the same problem from a different perspective. Ultimately, we're all being paid to do the same thing, which is get results.
100%. And we've, like from sharing common clients, we build great relationships with agencies that do very similar things to what we do, or agencies that kind of nicely overlap, and we refer work around and solve problems together and learn, right? Like I've learned so much from different creative agencies that we've worked with, web development agencies, PR agencies. And it is a cliche, but I think you do stand so much more. You stand to gain so much more by working collaboratively rather than seeing it as a threat.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's right. There should be a level of enthusiasm there rather than it being a negative.
Yeah. So I think that's a good, like, I feel those 9 points are good litmus tests of whether your agency relationship kind of is working or not. And I do feel that um, if you're being let down on a few of those things, it doesn't necessarily mean sack the agency, put a big RFP together, and then go out to 10 agencies and try to jump ship. I think it is about looking at those things and going, hey, I think they've actually got the capacity or the capability to deliver on these things, but maybe we just haven't got things structured quite right.
Yeah.
And I think you'll know if you kind of listen to this conversation that, what, by and large, our agencies do a great job, or conversely, you're just never going to get there. That kind of,
Yeah. That's it. It sort of comes down to that. I don't know if you read the book, but difficult conversations. I think sometimes, and this is not a client agency thing, but people would rather avoid a confronting or a difficult conversation. Um, they'd rather avoid that conversation than just fix the problems. And sometimes by not having that conversation, you're opening yourselves up to so much work in terms of getting rid of an agency, finding new agencies who might make the same mistakes the current agency making. So have that difficult conversation, have a frank conversation with your
yeah.
current agency, and that will ultimately determine whether they were actually the right agency or the wrong agency.
And I think being realistic, right? It is, so we'll often pass on a lot of work where you hear prospective clients coming to you, and they'll be rattling off these things. And you're like, that's just a classic agency client dynamic. And that's something where you haven't kind of stood up for yourself, or you came into that with a pretty unrealistic expectation.
Yeah.
So it is very much about having a pretty reasonable perspective on what a high functioning relationship will look like and how to change it if it's not.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. Good, honest conversations.
Awesome. Love it, Dave. Thanks for the conversation. I think there's some really good insights in there.
Yeah, no, it's good fun. Good fun. Always enjoy these conversations.
Thanks, Dave.